Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Streaming Wasteland here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where every Friday I highlight three different streaming services and pick a previously released film from each of them, and hopefully you'll have a nice full weekend of movie watching ahead of you. And for this week, we're going to be taking a look at AMC Plus, Peacock, and the Criterion channel. And let's get started with AMC Plus, which, has Shudder on it. So plenty of horror films. And we're going to get started with the 1981 film Possession. And this film is from Andrzej Zulawski. And this film focuses on the relationship between Isabel Adjani and Sam Neill's Anna and Mark. And this is such an unnerving and such a toxic experience in terms of their dynamic, their relationship. This film highlights these struggles in terms of relationships as both of these people wind up exhibiting such strange and increasingly disturbing behavior as their relationship begins to deteriorate. There's suspicions of infidelity is strange, outlandish, and kind of horrifying, you know, uh, disturbing behavior that's going on between these two. And this film is just shot in such a striking and rich and engrossing kind of way. The color grading of it, this gray blue world that is so enthralling to watch. The angles of just the production design, how the like each of these spaces feel claustrophobic in this big metropolitan kind of European city. And there's just claustrophobic camera work that puts us right up there with these intimate shots, and we're placed right in it as Sam Neill becomes a bit unhinged with his anger and just letting loose his frustrations on his wife. But then specifically what and Johnny it winds up doing in her performance is absolutely stellar and terrifying. This film very iconic for one particular moment where she goes completely unhinged with the control of her body and her actions. And this film has been certainly homaged quite a bit, specifically that scene, even in something recently like The First Omen, where Nell Tiger Free really channels at, at Johnny's performance in one particular scene. This is an unnerving and kind of oppressive experience. It's not for the faint of heart. It is not for those who are looking for, your standard satisfying narrative experience. That this is a slowly deteriorating, unhinged, and horrifying experience from start to finish, and is certainly worth a wild ride for sure. Now, over on Peacock, we're going to turn things back to 1998, and we're getting a little pulpier here as we're going for one of the first really successful Marvel comic book adaptations, and that is Blade. And this comic book supernatural horror action thriller from director Stephen Norrington and from writer David S. Goyer stars Wesley Snipes as the coolest, most badass vampire hunter you've ever seen. He's the Daywalker. He's Blade. And the black leather, the sunglasses, just the vibe. And this even came out like the year before The Matrix came out. And boy, did Wesley Snipes make it look so cool dressing up all in black leather. And he has his swords, he has his fangs, and he has all of his weapons here. And very engaging and thrilling film. The opening sequence for this film is off the charts for sure. This whole club scene with the blood coming down from the ceiling, and then just like that techno music score that comes roaring in as Blade comes in and starts slicing and dicing vampires. And the cast really works too. You know, this is well before Stephen Dorff really like leaned into I'm a grizzled middle-aged veteran actor now and pop up in character actor roles and steal the show. And I honestly really did like him as Deacon Frost in this film. It's interesting where the third act of this movie goes in terms of like how big, crazy CGI bloodfest this gets. But he's charismatic, he's intense. But I think really Chris Christopherson as Whistler is such a great performance from him, who, was a country western singer. Obviously, has acted over the decades, all the way back to the 70s, and he just brings some weight. And I love his relationship, and you have the likes of like Donald Logue, who is so big at this point into the early 2000s, and he is such an annoying but effective henchman. And there's just, I love the world building, like this conflict between like the old school, like pure blood vampires and those who've been turned, and those kind of societal conflicts. I am a bigger fan of Blade 2, and especially with Guillermo del Toro's direction, but this first film really sets the tone. And this really had the opportunity to be such a great trilogy until Blade Trinity ruined it. But, we still have the first one, and you can go check it out on Peacock. And last but not least, we're heading over to the Criterion channel as they're highlighting some early comedies, screwball comedies, women in comedy, and that is 1934's It Happened One Night. Because boy, does this have such a wonderful dynamic duo behind the direction of Frank Capra. You have Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert, and their chemistry is just off the charts. This film is so iconic. This really set the tone for like the screwball romantic comedy that, this might have been like one of the building blocks of it. And back then, you just had such great like setups for romantic comedies. A rogue reporter trailing a runaway heiress, where a big story joins her on a bus heading from Florida to New York, and they end up stuck with each other when the bus leaves them behind. And, you know, of course they don't get along. Of course they don't like each other. But by the end, they'll fall in love. And we've seen this so many times, but this feels so fresh because this was well before this became an annoying trope. And this hour and 45-minute film is packed with endless charisma from both Gable and Colbert. And just their relationship, their dynamic is so engrossing. Absolutely love that hitchhiking scene, which has become absolutely iconic at this point, with both of them trying to, get attention from and hitchhike their way and competing with each other to see who could get somebody to stop. You have that whole entire fun dynamic where they're sharing a room and they put the curtain up in between them and stuff like that. I just love their chemistry. Capra just understands the tone and the pacing and just brings this fast talking kind of comedy and just an absolutely joyous good time. Watching something like this makes you really miss what romantic comedies used to be, and not just the same cookie cutter thing over and over and over again on Netflix or Hallmark Channel. And this is a star studded and directed by a legendary filmmaker, and just has so much talent in it. And it all brings this comedic alchemy together and makes this an all time great comedy that, it's a must watch. That is a wrap here on the Streaming Wasteland. But let's not forget to give you a little bit of summary in terms of what we talked about. First off, we have AMC Plus, we have 1981's Possession. Over on Peacock, 1998's Blade. And finally, on the Criterion channel, you have 1934's It Happened One Night. But thank you all for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. Do you have any like of those like art house horror films from like the 80s and the 90s that really stand out to you? What's your favorite comic book movie well before the MCU and the DCU or DCU kind of like ate up the whole entire scene? And what are some of your favorite classic screwball comedies to go back to? And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. We have all new shows coming your way, and we're always looking for new collaborators, whether it's guests on our shows or new shows, to keep filling out this slate of great content for you to check out on our podcasting network. We have all kinds of things from music to television to sports to music to physical media and all kinds of other things as well. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative and check them out for all of your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Streaming Wasteland here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.